Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Stand Up Speakeasy. I am your host, Sareth, and every single episode I bring in stand-up comics. And this time, my goal, as mentioned in previous episodes, is to go on tour and interview as much comics as I can along the Central Time Zone. And since quarantine hit, I couldn't do it. But instead, I'm making lemonade out of lemons and interviewing comics from home, and we're live streaming these, and so you can interact in the chat box if you want. We're also raising funds for them and their favorite nonprofit organizations and charities too. So with that being said, I'm bringing on Mr. and Mrs. Wednesday Night, Lily and Charlie. How are you, folks?
Hey. Good. How are you, Sareth?
I'm doing quite well. Thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah. Our pleasure.
Awesome. So how's the world treating you?
Oh, it's a hard time to be a human right now, but we're making the best of it. I'm just doing what I can to not completely and totally obsess over our failed political state.
I've reached peak pessimism.
Yeah.
So I'm just letting that just simmer and bubble up and just putting on all of the appearances of doing just fine.
But, trying to find ways to see people in socially distanced, safe ways, trying to make sure that I leave the house at least once a day, and trying to make what music and weird stuff we can in our apartment while we figure out how to deal with the apocalypse. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where we are right now, which it sounds like, you're taking some lemons and making lemonade. I feel like that's probably what all of us are doing in our various situations right now.
Indeed. And speaking of the apocalypse and other stuff you can put on the food, I'm kind of worried about the bath salts here, and the zombies might eat my face. And
oh yeah.
But a zombie
apocalypse
apocalypse.
It's the place where you do actually have to worry about that.
Indeed, most definitely. So
go ahead.
You go for it.
I was just gonna say, about a decade and some change ago, was like many people, was super obsessed with zombies. Had a little period there where I was like rewatching all the old zombie films and watching all the new zombie films and reading all the zombie books and the survival guide and all of that. World War Z, which I do recommend as a book, not as a movie. And felt like, I don't think that this is actually going to happen, but it is good to think about how we would deal with an apocalypse. And now, a decade later, it's interesting realizing wow, there are zombies and there is some apocalyptic shit, but boy, it does not look how I expected it to.
No way.
It's a lot dumber and more frustrating than I thought it would be. Less exciting and full of high-speed chases and more just soul-numbing.
Indeed. And how about you, Charlie? How do you see the zombie apocalypse?
Well, my apocalypse preparation, I always thought, I'll be good. I can play acoustic instruments. I don't need electricity. I can entertain naked in the dark, right? I'll be fine, except for the fact that now I can't be in the same room as other people. So that part I hadn't planned for.
Right. Being naked in the dark by yourself is different than in front of other people.
Or trying to live stream your performances. I'd much rather have all the electricity be out and be able to see people in person than have all the tech work and not be able to hug and hold people. But it's nice to have Lily here and
and I am grateful for these weird digital things because it is nice to at least get to see people's faces.
That's true.
Like this.
That's very true.
Indeed, most definitely. I thinking maybe the zombie apocalypse is everyone focusing on their phones and just walking around and not paying attention to anything. Mm-hmm. No, that's the way I see it. And plus, I got to see a Train to Busan. I think it's what it's called, the Korean zombie movie.
Train to Busan. Yeah, we haven't seen that one yet. Yeah.
I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't watch the sequel, but watch the first one.
You got it.
Nice.
It's worth watching.
Added to our Halloween movie list. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's dive into it. And Lily and Charlie, you both consider yourself weirdos, and how come?
Well,
go ahead.
I think we see what we make as being a borderless kind of creativity. There are people who are I'm a stand-up comic, or I'm an improviser, or I'm a musician, and we're kind of here I am.
all in between.
We're
all
smearing
that
it
stuff.
all up. You know, it's like you take all the food on your plate and then you put it in the blender, and that's
Mhm.
like what we are artistically, you know?
Yeah, for years when I would try and fail to find a succinct way to like wrap up what I do and what Charlie does and what we do together, the easiest way would always be like, I don't know, we're a couple of creative weirdos. We do all this stuff. Like I'm in like theater and music and all of these things. And
Yeah.
for a long time I was into like super weird performance art dance, and there's just all of these different influences and all these you know, when it's a mashup of like puppetry and comedy and other all sorts of things, it's like, what are a couple of words that just kind of wrap it up a little bit nicer than going on and on like I tend to do. So eventually I started putting it on my my business cards, and then we decided now we have a little our like umbrella LLC is Creative Weirdo. 'Cause it's like that, everything falls under that umbrella. It's all some sort of a creative weirdo thing that we do. So
Indeed, I love it. Like, you know, weird is awesome. Like, you know, and they always say keep Boston weird and keep Louisville weird and all that good stuff. And you know, I love Hunter S. Thompson. We're too weird to live and too rare to die.
Yeah.
And so that's what I love. And so, yep. And it's fun being weird and strange and being outside the box, because like you don't want to be like the rest of those normies.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to either.
Indeed.
That's really it. These are all, I think the things we do have developed in part as like survival mechanisms. Like, you know, a lot of people learn how to be funny if they're getting made fun of all the time or getting beat up or whatever. And
or if messed up stuff happens and you're trying to find a way to deal with the crap in life. And boy, humor is fantastic for that. And so are a whole bunch of other weird art forms or less weird art forms. And, you know, yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there's this childlike wonder that we're always trying to hold on to, you know? Like, yes, you have to grow up in some ways and, you know, take care of business, blah, blah, blah. But if you're losing that spark, then like, where's the joy? And we want to hold on to that spark, kindle that thing and in whatever form. So if it's like making a kid's show where it's like bright colors, like some of the stuff you see in the background here, or it's our super left field adult variety show, like these things are always explorations, and we're chasing that dragon, you know, that little spark of joy, you know?
Yeah.
Indeed. I love going to like horror conventions and comic book conventions and dressing up and like I have the superhero alter ego, which is Wu Manchu, like a Wu-Tang inspired superhero.
Yes, that's awesome.
Love that.
Yeah. And like you know, it was a funny story. Like I met half of the Wu-Tang clan out in LA. And
so is that like 40 members?
Pretty much 40 members, you know, and it was I spent 3 hours with the RZA and we just talked about comic books and video games, and
oh man.
And I was like making the cape out of the studio that I was working at the time as an apprentice, and so it was a lot of fun. And I was like, I'm gonna start wearing these to like, you know, the Man in the with the Iron Fist movie premiere and see what happens. And the whole place went nuts for it. And yep. And then I went to the comic book conventions as Wu Manchu, and like, you know, there's so many Batmans and Supermans and Jokers and Harley Quinns, and then everyone saw me walking through the door, and they're like, "We want, you know, a selfie with you. Like, you're the only one like you as Wu Manchu, and we got to take pictures with you."
Well, in a way, it's almost like you're more of a real superhero because they're just playing dress up. You've created an alter ego that you're embodying.
Yeah,
you know?
That's what real superheroes do.
Absolutely, most definitely. I love it for sure. And so, Charlie, you go by many nicknames, like Charlie Universe and Charlie Wednesdays, and both of you are Mr. and Mrs. Wednesday Night. And how did all those nicknames? Where did all those nicknames come from?
At some point, I realized, one, you can put anything after the name Charlie, and it kind of sounds like a good stage name. And also, you can give yourself a nickname. You just say, "People call me this," and then there you go. You know, you don't have to wait for somebody to give you a cool nickname. And I thought Charlie Universe seemed like I was in a really cosmic point in my life then, making some really psychedelic music, reading the Tao Te Ching, and like, you know, smoking weed and writing these little haiku songs. And I was like, I feel like that's right, you know? And so that's kind of how that developed. And then Charlie Wednesday came about because we got married and we did this performance at our wedding reenactment. which we did at the Hideout in Chicago, which is our very most favorite venue in the world.
Because we had a little tiny ceremony out in the woods of Maine, like really hard to get to at the edge of the world, and wanted to have a big celebration with as many people as we could. So then we did a thing at the Hideout, and we realized, like, oh, we have a captive audience. We can do whatever we want. It's at the Hideout. At the time, we both worked there. And
so I loaded up my sampler with all the like really cliche like wedding reception hits, like I Want to Dance with Somebody and all that kind of stuff.
YMCA.
And so we did the ultimate like wedding mega mix in like 2.5 minutes though. So I just like rapidly hitting these samples, and we did freeze dance
and we sang. I had found a like denim onesie that I loved, and that reminded me of Dolly. So I got this wig. And Charlie has, for a long time, had this fantastic 3-piece Sammy Davis Jr. brand suit. And so we like decided we'd dress up for part of our thing. We sang a couple of duets and played this game. And at the end of it, the Tuttons, who are 2 of the 4 owners of the Hideout, were like, that was really funny, and you should turn that into a show. So it was, and then from that, then the first round of gigs they gave us were on Wednesday nights.
And then I said, okay, I'll be Charlie Wednesday, you be Lily Knight, and then together we'll be Mr. and Mrs. Wednesday Night.
Yeah, you know? So it is in large part thanks to the Hideout and the folks there that Mr. and Mrs. Wednesday Night came to be. And our love, or whatever.
And the love.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And so what I've gathered so far is that you're both musicians, performers, producers, collaborators, and all that good stuff, and you produce all your shows, and Charlie, you've have some compositions and music videos and ensemble theater productions. What can you all tell me about all those compositions, music videos, and ensemble theater productions?
So we're really fortunate. We love Chicago and our creative community here, and anything we do wouldn't be possible without all of our collaborators. So one of the things that I'm really blessed to be a part of is a band called Opera-Matic. We're a 25, 30-ish piece performance art marching band. Celebrated our, I guess this would be 16th anniversary this year. I've been in the band for going on 7 years, 6 or 7 years,
6
something
years.
like that.
Yeah, 2013.
I don't know. And so that's one really wonderful outlet, and I've gotten to make some videos for Opera-Matic. I got to make a music video for a song called Mr. Spider Goes Home to Spiderland, composed by the amazing and talented Dave Smith.
Also known as Lord Hornblower to many. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a staple of the music and theater scene here in Chicago. If you need a saxophonist to theatrically jazz up anything, he's probably going to be on that gig. And what else? I'm kind of rambling.
And then I am currently the artistic director for a group that's kind of a multidisciplinary public arts group called Opera-Matic. And we do usually we do big participatory events in the parks where there's music and there's theater and there's a bunch of different things. More so we're doing little things on video right now. But my background is more theater than anything, and kind of came into hanging out with musicians like Charlie because, mostly because in college, that was where all the straight boys hung out with, was all of the music folks. And all the musicians were a lot less dramatic than the theater kids in my department for some reason. And just kind of through osmosis eventually absorbed some of that and realized that I'm a lot more musical than I thought that I was, and started playing music. So have been kind of just in and out of theater, did a lot of Buto dance for a while, which is this really fascinating Japanese dance form that if anybody is like needing to process some dark shit, highly recommend you take a Buto workshop. It's like half folks in the performance world, half psychotherapy patients.
So yeah, we've dipped our toes in all these different worlds, in the performance dance world and in music. And I'm a Chicago native. I grew up here, so I've got friendships that are lifelong here. And a lot of that's to say, like, this is a place where if you want to do it, you just make it happen. Like, don't wait for somebody to tell you it's a good idea or not. Just like put the show on and try to get people there. And
I feel like that's
and if nobody shows up, do it again.
Yeah. I feel like that's true for all the different artistic communities that are all like these little overlapping Venn diagrams. Like there's so many fantastic comedians,
Mhm.
not just in Chicago, but sort of in the Midwest region that I'm a huge fan of, who like do all sorts of amazing shows by the seat of their pants. And that also is true for like the dance world and the music world and improvisers and all of these different amazing communities that influence our work and that we're always excited to like find new folks who want to collaborate with, because I feel like everything that we do really relies more than anything on collaborating with really talented folks. I feel like it's a cheat code that I discovered years ago. It was like, oh, if you just like fill this stage with really talented musicians and dancers and actors and comedians who like, then even if I completely and totally screw up and like fall flat on my face, the audience will have all of this awesome stuff to look at and listen to, and they won't notice. And it feels like, theater cheat, I suppose, getting to collaborate with wonderful people and know that you can rely on them, even if your faith in yourself is not always at the highest.
Yeah, and trying to really honor those relationships too, to make people, let them know how much they're appreciated. If that's monetary, doing that to the best of our ability, and certainly just telling people like, hey, you're amazing, we love you being a part of our show, and how can we help you in other ways. So there's a lot of bartering that happens in this community too. And hey, I'll provide music for some short film, or I'll help color correct your video or whatever, things like that. So
Indeed, most definitely, and that's some of the cool things. And I love collaborating with folks and learning how to do all that stuff. And my next goal is to do like a one-man show, and I'm premiering that at a horror themed coffee shop.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, in the Florida woods somewhere on the 21st. So I can't wait for that. So I'll probably record it and have you guys have you both critique it and tell me what I need to work on and what I can make it better and all that good stuff.
Cool.
I can't wait to watch that. That sounds fantastic.
Awesome, fantastic. And so you're both part of the creative weirdo team known as Adventure Sandwich. And I went to the website and I'm like, man, this is some pretty good stuff. And I went to your YouTube channel and this is some awesome stuff too. And what made you collaborate on Adventure Sandwich? What's the story behind Adventure Sandwich?
It's a long story.
Well, I'll try
Let's do it. Let's give the little version.
I, for a long time, worked as a teaching artist, teaching theater and music and movement to kids through Looking Glass and through the Nature Museum and some other places in Chicago. And was also like babysitting for a part of that. And so I was just kind of inundated with a lot of kids media. And not all of it is great. There's a lot of really not great kids media out there as far as like songs and TV shows go. And I was just kind of like wishing that there was something that felt really fun to watch that, had good nutritious content or whatever, but that also wasn't really like boring into my skull as an adult if I wanted to watch it with the kids that I was hanging out with. So that kind of prompted the idea of like, what would it be like if we created a TV show? And then one day we're having a conversation and just kind of out of nowhere, this sentence of like, oh, it's like an adventure sandwich with Imaginaes came out. And we're both like, stop, write that down. That's something. I don't know what it is, but that's something. And then we kind of sat on this idea for like a year.
Took notes and
just kind of were like, taking notes on all of the different things we were thinking about. And as I mentioned earlier, at the time I was obsessed with the apocalypse and was, for some reason, very concerned about our future environmentally, politically, etc. Not that any of those fears have come to fruition. Anyway, so I started thinking about like, okay, instead of just obsessing over how screwed we all are there ways that we could potentially help future generations who are going to have to deal with whatever aftermath there is from our environmental and political policies. And so all of those fears kind of turned into like, well, kids will need creative problem solving skills. They'll probably have to do things within limited resources because we're using them all up. They'll need to be able to collaborate with each other, to work with other people, to be able to see from other people's perspectives,
find joy,
be able to improvise, like, and think on the cuff, etc., or off the cuff. And so all of those things kind of ended up amalgamating into this idea of a show that was made out of things that kids could find at home, like cardboard and tape, etc., but that had a high aesthetic and content quality, focused on all of these really positive things, basically as a way to feel like, I don't know, maybe in little bits and pieces we can help give kids some...
So we did a Kickstarter and funded a pilot that we shopped around for a couple of years and got a lot of, it's amazing, we love it.
It's so unique.
Now, how about we not make it out of cardboard, and how about we change the name and all this stuff? And
right, love it because it's so unique. Can we take out everything that's unique about it? And
we've gone to a couple of these conferences that are like these children's media conferences where you just get an inside view to how just icky that world is, and how most of these shows are created to make plastic toy crap. You know, the script is secondary to, can we sell the gym shoe? Can we sell the backpack? Right. You know?
So we got super burnt out and learned a lot of things. And then
the plan was originally, though, to always self-produce regardless of the funding. Some problems happened with that. A couple of years later, we did start self-producing, and then in 2015, we did
like a year of content where we did every week we would release down some sort of a video, and then by the end of that, we were really like, okay, now I'm very burnt out. I need to set this aside for a minute while we kind of let go of whatever emotional baggage had worked up from the years of really trying to make it happen that way. So
we did some live performances. We did one that is one of my favorites. We did a David Bowie showcase at the Museum of Contemporary Art, and Jill Fahrenkamp was one of the people who put that together. And was it Jill who brought us in? Yeah,
and so like just throughout the years, got to do these little like live shows here and there, and have been doing like live shows at the Hideout every year for this Emmett Otter Christmas special that they do every year. That there will be some sort of a virtual version of this year, and then when quarantine started, we were feeling like the need to do something. And so we did a couple of Mr. and Mrs. Wednesday night live streams, and that was fun. And I was like, well, that was fun. We have a bunch of the old Adventure Sandwich props. What if we started doing some of that stuff again? And did one, and it felt really good. And then we just, chased that high for a while. And I've kind of dove back into Adventure Sandwich and revived it from hibernation, and did a bunch of live streams with the Hideout and some other folks, and now we're just kind of back in hibernation mode briefly while we really think on what our next set of videos we want to release.
Maybe a short film. I'd like to make something where we can kind of labor over it privately and then release it finished, instead of kind of scrambling to get something ready for a live stream every week.
I have a tendency to be like, let's just, when we go ahead and do this, and I'm just going to say publicly that we're doing this, which means now we have to do it. And,
Charlie, figure it out.
So we're going to hold off on that for a minute. I'm going to try not to launch us into a series of deadlines, and instead we're going to make a couple of things and then release them on a timeline that we'll figure out.
We've been kicking around the idea, separate from the sandwich stuff, of making a short horror film, and talking to Chris Santiago, who we love, about collaborating on that, maybe on script writing or something like that.
Just also, I'm very curious about this one-man show in a horror-themed coffee shop that you're doing.
Indeed, most definitely. Chris is such a great guy, and
oh my God, he's the best. Yeah.
Our interview lasted about 3 hours, and I'm like, this felt like the Joe Rogan podcast.
I watched a bunch of it, but I was like, holy crap, these guys! This is a marathon.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I was like, I can't believe that he's done so much, and you've done so much, and it's so great to see you all, just collaborating with each other all the time, and he speaks highly of you when he nominated you, and all that good stuff. And
so honored.
Yeah, such a great fella, and we'll get to those nominations at the end of the show for this stuff. But you've also you're the founder of the Lucid Street Theater, a performance collective that created original works from 2007 to 2011. What were those years like?
So that was like deep in my weirdo performance art dance life. Got sucked into Butoh and other kind of experimental and improvisational movement stuff, which, boy, there's a really fantastic community of folks in Chicago who do that kind of stuff.
Quick name drops.
Like Sarah Zalick and Carol McCurdy and
Aurora Tabar,
Ginger Krebs.
Charles Joseph Smith, who we love
Yes.
dearly.
Oh, and there's so many more fantastic people. And as soon as we end this interview, I'm gonna go and think of like 45 more people that I should have mentioned. But that world is really fantastic and just full of the loveliest, weirdest people who are so game for all sorts of things. Like, I want to make this weird show where I turn into a zombie. Do you think that's a good idea? Yeah, go for it. Great. Now I want to do a show where we make a gigantic bed and try to do a version of the Bacchae downtown. And like, we did a bunch of kind of big and small shows that all of them incorporated live music and original musical compositions, some form of improvisation, improvisational music and movement. And a lot of it was about some very dark stuff. My mom came to see one of the shows. Like in one of them, I ended up getting like strung up and sacrificed because it was a version of the Bacchae, and that's one of the things, spoiler alert for a 2,000-year-old show, that happens in the Bacchae. And the next one, I like turned into a zombie and then, eventually get murdered. My mom after that was like, well, that was nice, but maybe next time something a little bit lighter. So it was a lot of very dark stuff, but we got to do a lot of really interesting things with that company. We got to go to Belarus through that company, which was amazing, and created an original work with a Belarusian theater company through another Chicago company called Oracle Theater that sadly no longer exists thanks to rising rent prices.
They were one of the first, if not the first, theaters in Chicago to go completely free.
Yeah, they did.
You want to come see a show? Come and see the show, and it's free.
They did a subscription model for years. They were super inspiring. And then their building got sold and, got eventually the thing that happens to a lot of arts companies. But anyway, so those were some of the things we did with Lucid Street Theater. I feel incredibly lucky. And then eventually we kind of got absorbed into Adventure Sandwich and Mr. and Mrs. Wednesday Night and realized like, we can kind of shut the lid on that one and focus on these other things now.
Feels like just like we're building a Swiss Army knife of art tools, and that was just one thing to put in a knife.
Yeah.
And if we need to at some point draw upon that like dark theatrical kind of devised theater, we've done that, and we can pull the things that we've learned from that. And we actually, even in creating like stuff for kids, we've learned a lot from that world, Totally.
Indeed. And also, I noticed that in your travels also took it to the Czech Republic and France, and you've been recognized for various awards and residencies, including the Lisa Dershin Link Up residency, the Peggy
Notebart, yeah.
Notebart, there you are. Nature Museum's Artist in Residence, and the Chicago Digital Media Production Fund. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, people have believed in us at different points, which is wonderful. So thanks to everyone at any point who's ever believed in anything we've done.
Yeah, much appreciated. I have to remind myself of some of those things in the dark moments when imposter syndrome is like, you're crap. People think I'm okay. At least I can make it sound like that on my resume. At very least.
Indeed. Make sure you go to creative-weirdo.com for more information about Lily and all that good stuff. And
a website that I desperately need to update, but it's coming. It's coming.
Indeed. That's can't wait to see what the final product looks like. And it's always like I noticed about websites, like you're always working on it, and it's never finished.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, yeah.
Like that's how my with the interviews and my press kit, like I always have to update it all the time. I'm like, well, at least I got time since we're under quarantine. So
true. I feel like too there is something about the like never ending like you can just keep working on it that is, depending on how you're feeling in a moment, can be both frustrating or like really exhilarating, because it's like, well, at least I'm not going to run out of stuff to do, because there's always something that I can be working on. There's always a way to improve it. That can occasionally seem overwhelming and frustrating as well, but in the good moments, it's very exciting.
Indeed. With all of your adventures and and you mentioned about the theater that put on free shows and I'm hoping with all these interviews I hope to put money in your pocket so you guys can keep creating and producing and you don't have to worry about those big old studio execs saying you gotta take this out and take this out and all that good stuff. And so hopefully maybe you'll make your own merch with Adventure Sandwich and I'd buy some stuff from you and all that
Yeah.
good stuff and make some like some mayonnaise that has
Yeah.
Adventure Sandwich on it and all that good.
Hmm.
And let's see here. Now you're also raising funds. I'm raising funds for y'all. I hope with these interviews, but you're raising funds for the Opera-Matic NFP nonprofit organization and the Chicago Bail Bond Fund. And why did you choose those two to raise funds for?
Well, Opera-Matic is just the nonprofit in town that I know. Obviously, I mean, I'm biased because I work for this organization, so it's, but I just really believe in the work that they do, and they partner. And I, of course, also wrote that in a rush. And there's like so many other nonprofits that I feel like people could and should be supporting. That a lot of whom Opera-Matic is very honored to get to partner with, like LUCHA, which is a really fantastic housing organization local here in Chicago, and specifically like they do a lot of work in our neighborhood, and we live in West Humboldt Park, and Opera-Matic does a lot of work in this neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods, and the Logan Square Neighborhood Association, so lucha.org or lsna.net. Those organizations, and SRBCC, the Segunda Ruiz Belvis Community Cultural Center.
I think the idea being that, like, as I mentioned earlier, I've reached peak pessimism, but I do think that affecting change on a hyper-local level is the way to go, and working with organizations where you know people in your neighborhood and affecting things in your immediate sphere of influence. I think that's really, really important.
And so Opera-Matic kind of represents the art version of that, of like trying to really improve our community in small ways and work on community resilience in ways that the arts can help. But the Chicago Community Bail Fund, I feel like Bail Bond Fund is another one where it's a different way to support our community here, especially as we face this upcoming election. I have a feeling there might be more unjust arrests made, etc., and it might be a helpful thing. So figured we would put a couple of things that feel like they're directly supporting the community. There are so many wonderful organizations right now, though. I could spend at least a Chris Santiago amount of time.
This is a really good one. This is CIVL, the Chicago Independent Venue League. And they're an organization put together to help fight for the venues' rights right now, as everyone's struggling. And right now, 90% of the independent venues are at risk of closing permanently. So if you can, anyone who's watching, if you want to support independent venues in Chicago, CIVL, or nationally, the National Independent Venue League, or Venue Association, rather.
NEVA. So those are two fantastic organizations to donate to and support in whatever ways you can, because they're doing really valuable work for all of the venues that we are looking forward to eventually getting to revisit sometime in the future.
Indeed, most definitely, and I love that you're doing what you do, and we need those stages because we got to bring back love and joy to the world and make them forget it. Like laughter is the best medicine, and music and the arts is what brings people together, no matter what walk of life they are. And so that's fantastic, indeed. And so make sure you donate to all those fine folks. If you want, send me those links to all those fine folks, and I'll update the description box below.
We'll do.
Awesome. And so, with that being said, what are some we'll nominate some fine folks for the upcoming shows. Like comics wise, and based in Chicago. And so, which of all the open micers you've seen, which one do you nominate to be on the show?
So I was going through some of your other interviews that are available on YouTube, because I was like, I have a feeling that all of the people I want to nominate, a lot of them have already been nominated. But there are so many fantastic. Adam Gilbert.
Yeah, Adam Gilbert.
Adam Gilbert was one. Just every
We've been
time
really lucky to
have
him be a part of our show in the past, and his sets are always really great.
Yeah, I enjoy him every time I see him at an open mic or a late breakfast or any kind of a show. And Yeah, I'm trying. Oh, I had a whole list and I don't know where I put it. So, but Adam Gilbert was one of the names. So we'll nominate him for now, and then I might be like, oh, also these amazing people in just a little bit. But he's the one that comes to the top of my mind as far as a fantastic open micer. Every time I see him, love
Most
it.
most definitely, and I love the Late Breakfast. Like they were here for the Orlando Indie Comedy Festival, and that's the only show that I was able to catch like a couple years ago. And man, it was so fantastic. I still have like the props that they hand out to the audience and all that good stuff. So I got to keep one of those foam guns or whatever they had with the foam darts. It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I feel like it's a lot of the open micers and other folks too who we nominate. It's like a lot of them are in that sphere, the like often seen at late breakfast and other like slightly more off kilter shows.
Well,
Those are all.
And a lot of the people we know a little bit better have moved away.
Yeah,
and that's kind of how it works.
Yeah. Like Nikki Martin and of course like Tyler and Danny who started Late Breakfast.
Meg
Stelter, all of these people who it's like, oh, all of these fantastic weirdos who sadly are no longer in Chicago.
Oh no.
And it's not like there's shows we can go to now to see who's performing, you know, or if they're happening, I'm not sure where they are, you know. We've been hunkered down pretty.
Yeah. For other than going out to the woods. Yeah. But okay, anyway, continue on.
Your favorite featured comic?
I think he's already been nominated, but always love Cameron Gillette. We of course already mentioned Chris Santiago, who has been featured on this wasn't the first time, but one of my favorite Lincoln Lodge shows featured him and was just like, delightful. This is a group. But Sand is like headliner improv group and features like all of the guys are incredible. But one of my all-time favorite funny people in the Chicagoland area is Thomas Kelly, who is an incredibly skilled performer, like improviser, comedian, just crazy genius, fantastic, funny man. And they do a long form improv show. They also, for a long time, were hosting a variety show at Quenchers that, of course, now Quenchers no longer exists. But Sand is, one of my favorite featured acts.
Indeed, most definitely. And let's see here, your favorite headliner?
Oh, I guess I kind of went into, I guess Sand is probably more of a headliner. That's kind of,
I guess I'm a little unclear on those distinctions personally.
I feel like because we're like fringe comedy people who aren't like actually stand-ups. I'm like,
I've never done a stand-up set in my life, so.
I've done one.
You've done one, yeah. Yes. Well, no, that's not true. I did a stand-up set in the middle of the woods about a month ago for just Lily and whatever birds were around.
While we were on acid, it was great.
Indeed.
It was a hit.
It was crowd work mostly.
Most definitely. And your favorite host?
I've got a split. I already mentioned Sand, which is kind of headliner feature, and then also sometimes host when they're hosting things. But one of my favorite hosts is Noah Janex. I figure since we're kind of on that fringe, we should pull in some other like folks in this like not just straight up stand-up world. So he hosts a puppet variety show that is hilarious called Snorf, SNORF. And it features a bunch of puppets that he has created, and it's just a incredibly funny variety show. They did a whole bunch of shows at the start of quarantine as well. So if you look up Snorf on, I think it's like snorf.com or facebook.com/Snorf, they have a bunch of really fantastic videos. And he's just like another person who anytime I can collaborate with him, so excited to, because he's like a really fantastic host, knows how to like move smoothly between things, but also is really funny himself and can, as a puppet, like improvise all sorts of things off the cuff and like make a snafu that happens suddenly be fine. He's also often in puppet form been seen hosting Nasty, Brutish, and Short, which is a really fantastic puppet variety show. So he's one, and then the other one, do you want to?
No, you go.
Is
on a roll here.
I know.
So.
It is the folks at La Vuelta, which is a really fantastic physical theater like clown troupe, mostly Latino, and the hosts are Jean Carlos and Raquel Torre, a husband and wife like clown comedy duo, and the folks that they have on the show are fantastic, and they as hosts are really just Jean Carlos and Raquel both can. I will watch anything that they do, and they're really lovely. So I feel like if anybody gets a chance to see shows hosted by those folks, highly recommended.
Yeah, and somebody's probably already nominated Meredith for that too, either for Late or she was hosting Lincoln Lodge for a while, right? And
yeah, fantastic host. Yeah, again, great. Like I just want to nominate like the entire late breakfast universe, because yeah, Meredith is fantastic, and yeah, there are so many good hosts in town. Jeez.
Indeed, most definitely, and that's why I love Chicago so much. It's like it's theater and improv and sketch and stand up. It's just everything that I love, and
exactly.
Yeah, and then your favorite showrunners / producers, and other than yourselves.
Oh, I mean, he's not in Chicago anymore, but Tyler Jackson is such a fantastic. I mean, he also fits in the host thing as well, but just as a showrunner, even just virtually, he just did this remake of The Room with a bunch of comedy folks and musicians and animators and stuff. Chris Santiago did a short for that. And the way he coordinated that was like really skilled and lovely. So even though he's not in the central time zone anymore, I feel like he deserves some shout outs as a fantastic...
I would also say Sully Davis from The Hideout, because he not only books The Hideout, but he's really a curator of just a bunch of great talent, and will put together special events, and has just been an absolute gem to work with over the years.
Also, Alex Grelly and Andrew Saw and the folks at the Cosmic Country Showcase, all of their shows are really incredible. The production quality is always like off the charts, and the stuff that they produce is just amazing. But yeah, Sully Davis and
it's a good list of.
Yeah, totally.
Indeed, most definitely. I'll have to have you help me out with the spelling of their names, because sometimes I spell the wrong names and I reach the wrong people. I'm like, oops, I'm sorry, wrong door. So, but yeah, there's some viewers here. So if you'd like to jump into the comments section and interact with us, you're more than welcome to. And but be nice to us and all that good stuff. And so, but Lily and Charlie, thank you so much for being on the show today and raising funds for the fine folks that we spoke of earlier, and with your organizations, and hopefully everyone gets back on their feet. And I'll be sure to put them on the description box below so they can donate right away, and that way, and subscribe to your YouTube channels and Instagrams and Twitters and all that good stuff. And is there any final words you'd like to give to the audience tonight?
Yeah, I have a little thing. I think it's really important that we create the work that we want and not the work that we think people want.
Or that the algorithm wants.
That's what I'm getting at, is that, like, more and more, let's break away from these major platforms that are not looking out for us, that don't actually care about the quality of the content. Cultivate an audience that understands you and work on that. That's what we're trying to do, and focus on that. You don't need a bazillion million fans. You just need some diehard fans who get what your stuff is about, and hopefully that balloons out, At least that's my little bit of optimism that I'm holding on to right now.
And I would just say, because I have a feeling that a lot of folks are feeling like I am, which is a mixture of mostly trepidation and a tiny sliver of hope and optimism about how things might turn out in the near and not so near future, politically, etc., is just that the most important thing is that we all focus on taking care of ourselves and each other, and really focusing on ways that we can stay a part of our community, not isolate ourselves.
Build each other up.
Social distancing or whatever you have to do, that's fine. But just, building each other up, and really, in our time with, when we were in Belarus, we were just talking the other day about one of the things that our friend Luba said, because, they have been dealing with a dictatorship for basically their entire lives. And she said how, like, her focus, because at the time that we were talking to her, like, a prominent theater company had been exiled for being very explicitly sort of revolutionary. And she's like, I'm not focused on that right now. I'm just trying to make whatever I can for my community. I'm just trying in whatever small ways I can to make the people in my neighborhood and in my overall community make their lives that much better. And like you said, like, comedy is healing. It is necessary. We all need to laugh, both at, like, the fucked up stuff and at totally absurd, silly stuff. Like, it all helps. And the more we can be putting out whatever content makes us feel good as artists, and the more we can be reaching out to each other and really just trying to maintain those interpersonal connections and making sure that the folks in your community are doing okay. That's what we need to focus on. And if we really focus on that moving forward, we'll also then be able to deal with whatever community actions we have to take in light of big things happening.
I forgot one quick thing. Major shout out to our band, the Wednesday Night Specials.
Yes.
Rich Clark, Aaron Wright, Larry Beers, Nick Davio, Sean Hughes, Lindsay Weinberg,
Dave Smith, Sharon
Lanza.
You already mentioned Sean, Nick Davio. There's so many people. Aaron Wright,
anyway, our Wednesday night show would be nothing without that band. So big shout out to them. We love them.
Yeah, and just to the folks at the Hideout in general. I know we've talked about them a bunch earlier, but just basically everything that we do is in some way or another related to how supportive the Hideout community has been to us. So just gotta give them lots of love.
Indeed. Big ups to the Hideout for sure. So Lily and Charlie, thank you so much for being my guests on the show today, and I'm honored to have you both and meet you both, and I look forward. I'm planning on going to Chicago in May and August, and so hopefully I get to run into you and we'll talk and some more and all that good stuff. And
hopefully we will be able to, like, do shows at the time.
I want to meet Wu
like,
Manchu.
Collaborate with you. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
We want to meet this superhero.
I would love to be dressed up as Wu Manchu and all that good stuff. Got some superhero jokes, some music jokes, and all that good stuff.
Well, we got a slot for you on our show when you're ready. So
exactly.
Oh, right back at I have a slot at my festival. I have a festival in Colorado that's music and comedy. And so if you guys ever make it out to Colorado, I have a slot for you too.
Excellent. Yeah.
Oh, this has been such a joy. Thank you so much for having us on the show, Sareth.
And thanks, Chris, for nominating us.
Indeed. Thank you, Chris, too. And great talking to you. And can't wait to meet you in person.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Awesome. Be well, Lily and Charlie, and I'll see you on them in the future.
Stay safe and stay sane. Cheers.
Indeed.
Awesome. Be well, folks.